first, thank you very much, Wendy, and for ODI for availing us such an opportunity, but indeed to all of you for attending this event. And I should not assume that I will be able to meet most of your needs and what you expected, but I will try my level best to avail to you what I could. The way I want to start as unfinished business is for the Sudan Comprehensive Peace Agreement, because that is the agreement for me that has provided an opportunity for Sudan to be on a new track, a track of stability, peace, and a track to bring Sudan to the global values. And I think the unfinished business is about the Comprehensive Peace Agreement. I want to start by a quote of our leader, Dr. John, when he said, but it's not in a way a pessimistic presentation of what I'm seeing now today in Sudan. Dr. John said that the National Islamic Front, which is now the NCP, is too deformed to be reformed. Really, I want to start with this statement because being in war, negotiating peace, implementing peace, being in government, I think I want to start from here. But before I go to details about what I'm seeing in Sudan, I'm one of the people who said clearly that we need to recognize the NCP for its courage to accept the option of peace rather than war, and to sign a peace agreement. A very courageous political stand for them even to accept, not by choice, by the determination of the people of Southern Sudan, the right of self-determination. And we have been very consistent appreciating that position. But we thought also we entered into peace agreement with the hope that even if the South secedes, there are a lot of opportunities that we should look into the comprehensive peace agreement. And that's why, while going back to the phrase of Dr. John, I just underline that point of my appreciation to the NCP. But even in the process, I was about to say maybe Dr. John was wrong. And we start moving with that process until 21st of May, 2011, when Bashir invaded Abyei, and then we saw the pattern of the very atrocities committed in Darfur repeating themselves in Abyei. But indeed, we are seeing them clearly in Southern Kordofan. Possibly may go even to Blue Nile. And that raised the question, definitely I think Dr. John was right, that NCP is too deformed to be reformed. Now, but let me give you mapping what is happening within the National Congress Party, because I think it should be the unfinished business. I am seeing the following, that the NCP, after the invasion of Abyei and what they're doing now in Southern Kordofan, is a very big alarm bell that the international community should focus on what is happening in Khartoum. And I see the Islamic agenda in Khartoum is almost failing. The National Congress Party is divided, lacking focus. But I think that one is worrying because it could produce radicalism, but even the military to come into scene. And I see clearly, while we are talking about the NCP, we should not forget the great people of Sudan that should not conceal that we should focus on them. I am seeing the NCP is coming to the end of the road, and I think it is very important for international community to take the agenda of the values of issues of human rights and issues of crimes committed against humanity in these three areas. I think it's a high time we should raise that issue very high, morally, because that's the only way you can help the people of Sudan. I am saying this out of my own conviction that the NCP and its leadership is a liability not to their own party, but indeed to the people of Sudan, but a threat to global security at large. And that's why, for me, it is very important when we talk about unfinished business is to focus on Sudan. And it is very important that we may need to look at the key actors we are seeing today in Sudan, the remaining Sudan, the continuing Sudan. I don't want to highlight more than enough. The Sudan People Liberation Movement is a key player now in the northern sector. But indeed, the forces of Darfur, but what is happening in Southern Kordofan is quite telling that the regime is getting weaker every day because the agenda of mobilizing the North are almost exhausted. And I don't see what card they will use in order to mobilize the North. This about the I don't know what much I have. So I don't know if it's 5 minutes.
You've
okay.
got 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay. The another unfinished business is about Southern Sudan. I think it is important that we or the international community focus on this new nation. This is a nation that you invested heavily politically, but you respect your commitment. And I think the challenge for us, we should make it a success story. This is a number 193. This is a country that should get experience from 192 countries. And there's no way it should fail. I know people have been making scenarios, a failed state before it is born. But I think the people of Southern Sudan, the way they conducted themselves in the referendum and the way they showed during the celebration of the 9th of July, there's no doubt they set a very high standards of civility. And I think these are the people, they share the same values. They have been fighting for basic values, the global values that you have, and respect for others, democratic values. And this is a country that is well endowed with enormous resources, very flexible, open people. What is missing is just only the capacity to govern and to utilize those resources. And I think it's something we can do. I'm saying this one because as much as I'm seeing a very gloomy picture in the northern Sudan, I think there's a very glaring hope in Southern Sudan. Collectively with us, I think we can make Southern Sudan a success story, and to give hope also to the people of Northern Sudan that indeed these are the people who should set an example to Northern Sudan. But definitely there are so many challenges facing this new state. We know for sure consolidating peace and stability will be high on the agenda. We know the Northern Sudan will be keen to destabilize the South. But for me, I don't want to talk about it because the reality in the North is that the NCP is struggling for its survival. Even the militia that they have been using by necessity, they will wither away or they will die or they will come back. But that's a top priority, consolidating peace and stability and sense of security to the people. The government of Southern Sudan has been keen on this security sector reform, what they should do for the SPLM to be a modern army with a security sector reform and the whole of DDR. Because this is very important, how much the threat in the north will increase the expenditure, the military expenditure, but I believe if we have a stable Northern Sudan, I think we are going to have a very radical reduction in the military expenditure. And this is the way we can be involved in the DDR program. The second challenge I'm seeing is the political stability. There's no doubt SPLM as a political party that brought peace, independence, is going to have a monopoly of power for time to come. And that's natural for any liberation movements. But for me, that by itself is an issue. And that's why in the process, I have discovered that it's very important to focus on civil society organizations, especially the youth, women, the churches, but indeed the media. Because that will be the only space that will provide check and balance, a real check and balance to this new government. And how, because I know being the SPLM will be monopolizing whatever you talk about, the executive, the assembly, whatever. But I think this civil society will be the real voice that should check at least on SPLM, and we should invest in it. The third challenge is economic viability of this state. I think there is no doubt Southern Sudan is facing what I could say the Dutch disease. The Dutch, not but I see it's a big challenge. How best we can move this country on relying entirely on oil to the real economy, and focusing on issues of agriculture is critical. But we are discussing about how can we reform this sector, especially the oil, to be competitive, because it is now under the monopoly of Asian or other companies like the Chinese, Asians, Indian. They came during the right time, during the difficult time, and I think we need to inject a real competition in this sector. Otherwise, the South will not, in terms of our commitment to the people, but to the environment. Now, I am saying this one because it is very important when we talk about unfinished business, because a CPA should produce a viable state. And the viable Southern Sudan must be viable. And I think together we can do it. The last point, let me focus about the three areas. Abyei. I think for me, what happened for Abyei is a reflection that has exposed to the international community, to the people of Sudan, the reality of the National Congress Party. There was no any reason for whatever, for them to do such a reckless invasion of Abyei. And that cost them a great deal, for the international community, for the Sudanese people, and even for some of the elements within the leadership of SPLM. They lost even somebody like Salva Kiir. And I think it's very difficult to see any sensible discussion around the post-secession arrangements. But it is critical that people to focus on Abyei because it's a flashpoint. This is an area, if we manage to resolve it, it is possible that we'll be able to forge a new building confidence between the North and the South. And it's very important for the international community to focus on Abyei. Very clear case. This is an area that was part of the South in 1905, was transferred to the North because of slavery, because of attack against the people of Ngok Dinka. And I don't see any reason to, this is an area that should be returned back immediately to the South. But it is true, you cannot return it until with a package. Because the National Congress Party, they need a soft landing. I'm one of the people I believe, for the people of Sudan, they need to have, at least, to ease the burden of the impact of the secession. Southern Kordofan. This is another betrayal where people actually aggrieve being in the peace agreement. These people, they were not for the right of the popular consultation, they were for the right of self-determination. What National Congress Party did, betray the people that actually having nothing except to rule themselves and a right at least to exercise within the United Sudan. And not only in terms of rigging election, robbery over election, but indeed the provocation of trying to cleanse the area from SPLA before the end of the interim period. A provocation that not actually called for. What we are seeing in Southern Kordofan is a continuous war that will bring the end to the regime in Khartoum. But we have to be clear about the humanitarian dimension of it, because definitely we are going to see hundreds, thousands of people going to be displaced. And it is very important for us to raise an alarm bell as of now for humanitarian to this area. There are two options available for us to resolve the issue of Nuba Mountains and Southern Blue Nile. I think the popular concern is quite critical, but I think the expectations are going to be very high. I'm not going to talk about public consultation again. It is about the regime change that I think is going to be on their agenda. And that one will take some time, I think. To conclude, I want to emphasize one point, that we, the Sudanese people, we don't have choice but to forge a relationship between the North and the South. whoever comes within the North and the South, I think those relationships, we have to strengthen them, to nurture them. The regimes that are there, they will go, but the people will be there, the people of Sudan. And I think we should not forget that reality. Second, I think it is very important for the international community to raise very high the human rights and atrocity committed in Sudan. I think that's the only way you can actually put more pressure on Khartoum. But we should not forget also a dialogue, definitely, in commitment for a dialogue and discussion, as was agreed in Addis Ababa Agreement, that the regime rejected it. The third, I think, for Southern Sudan, I think let us make it a success. And thank you very much for listening to me.